Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to a Down the Block Sports exclusive. I'm your host, Alec Walt, the host of the Alec Walt Show, alongside Conor Robinson and Michael Balko, the host of the Who Dat Chat, joining forces for this weekend's Patriots vs. Saints matchup at Gillette Stadium. Both teams are 1-1 on the season. Before we jump into that matchup, let me introduce my two co-hosts. What's going on, Conor? What's going on, Michael? Welcome to this exclusive podcast here on Down the Block Sports.
What up?
We're previewing that big Patriots versus Saints matchup. I, of course, am a big fan of the New England Patriots. These two are the hosts of the New Orleans Saints podcast here on Down the Block Sports. So again, I mentioned both teams are 1-1. Michael, we'll start with you. A lot of the reason the Saints are 1-1 this season is the play of Jameis Winston, extremely efficient in week 1, not so in week 2. It's been a really up and down start to the season for your starting quarterback. Give me a breakdown of what you've seen from Jameis.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it has to do with necessarily Jameis Winston as much as it has to do with the Carolina defense, just how unreal they are.
Good.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a much improved Jameis Winston. I think we're going to see, I'm not going to say he's going to throw 5 touchdowns against the New England Patriots, but what I am saying is that I think he's probably going to be good for about 2 or 3 touchdowns. If you're betting a parlay for the over of 2.5, I think you're probably pretty safe with that. I think Jameis go out there, toss a couple touchdowns. He might throw a pick, I don't know, but I think he'll put us in a position to win. I think the O-line will play a lot better. And I mean, when you're pressured on like 75% of your dropbacks or whatever the ridiculous number was, it's probably a number we literally have not seen as Saints fans since probably in at least 5 years, since our O-line still had Zach Strief, I feel like. But yeah, when you're pressured that much at the quarterback position, you're just destined for failure. And I mean, I don't know, man. I think we'll be much better this week. But yeah, Jameis was lights out week 1 and just completely terrible week 2. So I'm hoping that we see a much sturdier option here on Sunday.
What about you, Conor?
Yeah, I think that with this season so far, we've seen what Jameis can be in terms of an effective game manager versus what Jameis's bad habits can come back to be, which is what happened last week, where he's, throwing a bomb down the middle of the field while he's falling down, putting himself in these positions where, he's trying to force things, and we need to make sure, okay, hold on to the ball. If you can't force the throw down the field, throw it out of bounds, keep the game alive, excuse me. I think it's kind of, the 5 touchdowns against Green Bay is great. He has that in him, but when the defense is, come up and they're really pressuring us, and Balko said, that number is really high. I mean, that game was crazy. The Panthers were all over, really trying to get to the quarterback. So if they can give Jameis the time, he's got some weapons around him. He does need some more. And with Michael Thomas coming back, in the future, hopefully he gets that, offense squared away.
Yeah, so it's going to be a good matchup this week, because here's the thing. When it comes to a matchup between these two teams, we're going to jump into it now because you guys have talked a lot about holding on to the football. Okay, what have the Patriots done very well this season with Mac Jones at QB? Hold on to the football.
Barely scored touchdowns.
That too. But their defense does an outstanding job forcing turnovers. But if you're the Saints and your focus in this matchup is not turning the ball over, I feel like this matchup against this Patriots defense is not very good. Because even without Stephon Gilmore, they're still playing very well in the secondary. And they have a team that can force Jameis to throw turnovers.
Yeah, no, I agree. In all seriousness, even though it is a rivalry week for us, because everyone hates the Patriots, everyone hates the Saints. I guess we have that in common, so that's cool. But no, in all seriousness, I think it is going to be a really good matchup. The Patriots they have a very underrated defense, a defense that doesn't give nearly enough love. And the teams are very similar in a lot of ways. I mean, they're both kind of gritty, grimy teams this year. The Saints are usually like a high flying offense. You're usually good. It doesn't shock you on any given week if we put up 30 points a game. Whereas this season, it's more like, we'll be lucky to scrape out some 20-17 wins or some, 17-13 wins, or, there's going to be a lot of back and forth games like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if the one on Sunday is a game exactly like that. I think I don't think there's going to be a much disagreement if I say that there might be only like 2 or 3 total touchdowns in the entire game. It could be like a field goal, field position type of game. Both teams have really good special teams units. Both teams have really good defenses, especially with Lattimore, Chauncey, and Bradley Roby. All those guys are going to be out there on Sunday for the Saints. So, especially with the Saints having an improved defense as opposed to last week, we should have a lot of our coaching staff back, if not all of them. I think it's going to be a very well-coached game. Obviously, we all know about Bill Belichick and his success. And, Sean Payton has had a lot of success in his own right. Not as much as Bill Belichick, but I think it's going to be a very well-coached game. I think it's going to be a very gritty game. And I think it could go down as one of the game of the weeks. I mean, in all honesty, we're talking about 2 legendary future Hall of Fame head coaches right here. And they're just duking it out on a Sunday afternoon for our pleasure. So it's going to be a good one.
And here's the reason I agree with you, because it's going to be a game where I think the running game and the ground game and the time of possession is going to be huge. You mentioned the low-scoring game. You want to keep the other team off the field. When I look at the Patriots offense, they're a team that has to run the football. They've showed it through the first couple of weeks. They have a strong offensive line. I know they're dealing with injuries to guys like Trent Brown, which is unfortunate, but one thing the Patriots have done well these last couple of weeks is time of possession, is managing the clock, running the ball on the ground. When you look at the Saints right now, you guys have a very strong offensive line. You have one of the best running backs in the NFL. We also talk about limiting turnovers. If Jameis isn't throwing the ball and you can keep getting positive yardage on the ground with Alvin Kamara, there's no reason to force some of those deep passes. So one thing, when I look at this matchup, I think you're 100% right. It's going to be gritty. It's going to be tough. But one huge determinant who's going to win this game is who wins the game on the ground, because the Patriots want to run the football. Damian Harris, James White's getting more involved in the passing game, too. I'm loving to see that out of New England. It's going to be a huge match between these two backfields.
Exactly.
So, Michael, give me a breakdown. You're in the Saints coaching staff. You're getting ready for this New England Patriots defense. How do you game plan? I know we mentioned the ground game is very important. There is more to that, but what is your game plan for getting ready for this Patriots defense that does force a lot of turnovers?
Yeah, I think you just kind of have to expect the unexpected a lot. I think Sean Payton definitely has some tricks up his sleeve. If you notice, kind of like the game plan for the Saints in the first couple of weeks has just kind of been, push the ball to Juwan Johnson or push the ball to, Deontay Harris running a fly route. We haven't really seen our preseason secret weapon in Marquez Callaway at all this year. I think Marquez Callaway could have a huge boom game this week. And if I'm right, so help me God, Alec, if you do not clip this and tweet it all over the interweb, I'm telling you. But I am telling you guys right now, Marquez Callaway is going to be your man. If you have a flex spot open on your fantasy football rosters, you're not sure who to go with, throw Marquez Callaway in there. He's going to have a boom week. It seems like every 3 weeks is kind of his like huge game, and it's always against an unlikely opponent. It's going to be Callaway. He's going to ball out. And honestly, I think we just need to see a lot more from Alvin Kamara as well. He's been pretty quiet this year, and I think he could have a huge game. I think the Saints O-line is going to be a lot more improved. So I think you just kind of have to ground and pound a little bit, use a weapon that there's not much film on right now, which is Marquez Callaway. We all know what he brings to the table, and we all know his chemistry with Jameis Winston. And, I think it is just literally just floating out there. It seems like the most obvious layup in terms of like, if you have to place any prop bets on like anything to do with like who's going to be the star receiver for the Saints on Sunday, all signs are pointing towards Marquez Callaway, in my opinion. I know Alec already kind of mentioned that Stephon Gilmore's still out. So that's huge for the Saints. We've been going against 2 good corners, both week 1 and week 2. So, we're going to have like a 3rd string corner going against one of our receivers. And right now you could argue Callaway's not our number 1 guy. So with that being said, I think Callaway is going to have a huge game on Sunday. I think Jameis is going to ball out, probably connect all 3 touchdowns to Callaway while we're at it too. Cause but no, in all seriousness, I think you have to work on just throwing shorter routes. I mean, kind of take take a page out of the Drew Brees playbook a little bit. Just focus on those quick, easy routes, those slants, get you down the field, worry about the red zone stuff later, ground and pound the ball. Patriots run defense isn't nearly as good as their pass defense, in my opinion. I haven't really watched too much on the Patriots, but one thing I do know is that the Saints know how to run the football. We got 2 good backs that can do it. And I know I don't really want to throw against that Patriots secondary that has J.C. Jackson in it. So that's his name, right? J.C. Jackson?
Yeah.
Hey, look at me. Wasn't he like the NFL interception leader?
They have a deep secondary, even though Gilmore isn't there, but I do think it obviously hurts not having Gilmore there on the outside.
Yeah, definitely. But I think if we just focus a little bit on like the 2020 Saints, the 2019 Saints, and kind of do what we did there, those little screen plays, just simple shit, man. It's always going to be like the simple stuff that always just knocks off a good team like the Patriots. So we'll see.
I mean, to complement that, if I'm the Patriots and I'm game planning for a team like the New Orleans Saints, I feel like
you're not running the ball.
You have to stick with that game. You have to run the football if you're the Patriots. You have to control the game.
You can't.
You have to put Jameis in a deficit early and force him to throw more passes. Because I feel like the game plan is set for how to beat Jameis Winston. If you force him to throw 50 passes, 3 of those could go to the other team.
Simmer down. He had LASIK eye surgery, damn it.
Hey, I'm not saying Jameis is not a good quarterback. I'm just saying the game plan on how to beat him is very obvious. And if you're the Patriots, that plays to your strengths. What have they been able to do these last 2 weeks? Win the time of possession, run the football, not turn the football over. Yes, the one concern I have for this Patriots team is that getting off to an early lead, getting this big offense going, because even though Mac's been efficient, even though Mac, hasn't turned the ball over a ton and probably has found the most success out of all the rookie QBs, early on, just because of the overall situation he's in New England. But this offense isn't blowing anyone away. This offense isn't putting up 42 points and, scoring on 5 plays down the field with him slinging the ball 30 plus yards 2 times. That's just not how this offense goes. But if I'm the Patriots, I'm focusing on getting points early and forcing Jameis to throw. If I'm the Saints, I'm forcing, doing exactly what other teams have been doing. The Patriots have been getting the ball down the field, but, not all the time they're getting that ball into the end zone. And I think that's going to be a huge key in this game. Because Jameis can put up points. That's the thing. Even if he throws interceptions, the Saints still have an offense that can put points on the board. And I don't fully trust right now that this Patriots offense could put up a ton of points, because that's just not how they're built right now.
I would say Ian Book is the best rookie quarterback this year, because he had to basically coach the New Orleans Saints this past weekend and did a damn good job with those substitutions.
So he's the best backup quarterback.
Yes, but I don't see Mac Jones out there making substitutions. So,
hey, Mac Jones has been impressive. I will say he's further ahead than I thought he'd be.
Because,
I think, again, he's a guy
Justin
who can
Fields is already the best rookie quarterback this year.
Justin Fields has a lot to prove this week, and I hope the Justin Fields era begins. I'm sick of seeing Andy Dalton take the field. I hope he heals and he's healthy. It's unfortunate to see what happened to him last weekend, but I think Justin Fields is a stud, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. When Mac Jones, think about it. One of his positives was not turning the football over. Hasn't done that yet. One of his positives was reading a defense. He's been able to prove he can do that. He's leading this offense well. He's winning his teammates. It's just they need to take that next step as an offense to score more points. They've scored 41 points through 2 games. I do think it helps that this game is in New England, so it's a home game for them. So if they're not going to the dome and getting screamed at, I do think that's one advantage here for New England, is where the location of this game is. But I think that's the one key for New England, is how can they get more points on the board? Because that Mac's not going to have every win where the other team throws 4 interceptions against one of the worst run organizations in the league. That's just simply not going to happen in this matchup against the Saints. So, Conor, we've had you pretty quiet for the last 5 minutes here.
Yeah.
Give me a quick breakdown. You're getting ready for this Patriots offense. How do you think your defense matches up? Because it seems like you guys are very deep on the secondary with guys coming back, but they're a team that likes to run the football, and you're going to have to stop some guys in the interior if you're going to win this game.
Yeah, and I think you look at Demario Davis, he had the most tackles last game for the Saints, and he's a very good leader. So Obviously, having everyone back, I'm not sure it's going to be every single person that was out in terms of injuries and illness, but having more people back will help the flow. I think we saw the best that Jameis could be, the worst that Jameis could be week 1, week 2, and a lot of the team just didn't get going against the Panthers. So I'm hoping that they'll get going, early. I know Balko said Marquez Callaway. A guy I'm interested to see get going again is Juwan Johnson. 2 touchdowns in that first game, 1 catch last game. He's got the athleticism. I think he could be good, but defensively speaking, yeah, Demario Davis. It all starts with him having a good game. Him getting the pressure on early, making sure Mac Jones is not having any easy plays and winning the individual battles there.
So I'm someone in fantasy football who pretty much punted at the tight end position. I kind of waited for like the Jared Cook late in drafts, the former New Orleans Saint. But after week 1, I kind of did some diving in free agency. Of course, you didn't have to dig too deep to find out that Johnson had a very good week 1 matchup. But Michael, is Johnson someone for real here at tight end? Because we saw him explode there in week 1, then not really too involved in week 2. Well, give me your thoughts on the new tight end here. Is he someone who you think's legit in this offense?
Yeah, it's so funny because like people in my Erie Seawolves league, shout out to the Erie Seawolves. Everyone in my Erie Seawolves league, they're just kind of just like, man, Juwan Johnson's like the truth. Like, why don't you pick him up? Like, he's gonna be this and that. But I'm not too high on the Juwan Johnson train because listen, man, like you said, he's just kind of just like had one really good game and didn't even get targeted last week. But then again, at the same time, like with that being said, they're 2 completely different games. The Saints absolutely exploded week 1 and they absolutely just literally were just sleeping in week 2. It was like the opposite of what we did to Green Bay. So it's just like, we have no idea so far how to gauge what the scheme of this offense is going to look like for the Saints because we genuinely have no idea because we were in a blowout and we got blown out. I think you learn a lot about your team and your offensive personality, you could say, once you get a few games under your belt and in those close games to see who the hell are you going to target when, you need a clutch 3rd down conversion. In week 1, that was Juwan Johnson. In week 2, it was other people. And with Troutman getting back healthy and with Nick Vannett that's going to be returning soon, Juwan Johnson's role is, very obviously going to decline a little bit. So, it's just, you can't really expect him to maintain anything similar to what he did in week 1. Is he worth stashing on a fantasy football roster? Probably, to see how he pans out over the next few weeks. He's worth stashing, I'd say, but I don't think he's going to be anything substantial. And I think especially when your fantasy football trade deadlines come around, I think he's probably going to be a player that a lot of leagues end up, dropping simply because he's not going to have anywhere similar to that week 1 production. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near a fantasy top 20 tight end, top 15 tight end this season. So I don't really think he's worth rostering in fantasy football. Is he going to be an impact player for the Saints? Probably. He's probably going to be a guy that'll, catch about 2.5. I'm just saying, like, in terms of just like parlays, like 2.5 catches, I'd probably slam the over on I'd probably say like 3 catches a game. Juwan Johnson's probably going to be a 3-catch, 5-target guy, in a normal offensive scheme, I'd say, because he is kind of like that receiving tight end that we don't have. He made the 53 for a reason, and he had that big game for a reason. He's talented, but he just needs to kind of, block a little bit better, I'd say. And, once he can do that, I think he could be our every down tight end. But yeah, it's hard to say that with Troutman and Vannett as like our main tight ends that are pretty much hogging all the snaps. So until he can get more snaps under his belt, I don't think he really holds too much fantasy value. But yes, I do think he's going to be important to the Saints in his own way. But I don't think he's necessarily worth a fantasy football roster spot.
I was hoping for a different answer than that at the end. But either way, we're going to talk more about this Patriots-Saints matchup right now. Okay, but let's go with our predictions here. Michael, we'll start with you. What happens in this week 3 matchup between the Saints and the Patriots?
28-3 Saints win.
That's a stupid number to predict. What about you, Connor?
I'm going to go 21-17 Saints.
I'm going to go 24-21 New England. So outside of the
Stop.
prediction there by Mr. Balko there on the bottom, here's how I look at this matchup. In a game where turnovers can kill you, Mac has proven he is not going to turn the ball over. Jameis proved that he can. If it's a 2-0 interception difference, I think the Patriots are going to win this game. I love what I'm seeing out of this secondary. They're playing great defensively, and they're not turning the ball over. Like I mentioned before, if they can find a way to put some numbers on the board, stop wasting some offensive possessions, I think this team will be significantly better, but it's week 3. We'll see how this team offensively looks in week 7. I'm not expecting huge changes on that side of the ball heading into this matchup. But this game's at home. This team has been much efficient. If they can hold on to the football, I think their turnovers have really been more running the ball. So if I'm the Saints defense, I'm definitely trying to get some more fumbles. But it's going to be a really good game regardless. I expect an extremely close score between these two teams.
I was just kidding on the 28-3. I just had to troll the Atlanta Falcons real quick. I honestly think it's probably going to be like a 28-24 final. Saints are winning, though.
I think it's a close game. I think that we're going to see a game plan that's going to be more, safety oriented, right? It's about who's going to win the war as opposed to who's going to win the battle.
2-0
I
Saints.
want you guys throwing those 50-yard bombs.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Marquez Callaway.
Some of those deep passes. I mean,
go ahead. We'll throw them. Don't worry. Deontay will be open. Deontay will be open.
You got. I love those two safeties back there. Phillips got an interception last week. Devin McCourty's been one of the best center fielders in football for years.
If there's a guy on the offense that's going to be able to, throw a little trickery around, I would say Sean Payton will be able to maybe get a blown coverage or something.
It's all fun and games till Taysom Hill scores a touchdown on you.
Hey,
Gronk spikes in your end zone.
If you can find that advantage, screw it. Put him in the game.
That's another thing. Juwan Johnson, he also has to compete with Taysom Hill for some tight end reps. So that's 4 tight ends.
I think you guys should play Johnson. I think he's unguardable in the
You're only saying that because you own him in fantasy.
Well, yeah, that is true. But either way, he is unguardable regardless in the red zone.
I think he's got all the weapons. It's just, can he get that blocking? And then once that clicks, it's going to be, how do you get him in with
the Panthers did give the Patriots a game plan. If they're going to rush you a ton, you're going to see guys like Judon, Uche, Winovich. I mean, it's not as good as Brian Burns and other guys like that on the Panthers, but I expect the game plan to be kind of similar to them. Get after Jameis Winston.
3-0 New Orleans Saints win.
3-2.
I really, really hope that's not the final score.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
Today.
Because that's how many points the Falcons lost by.
They did. That we can agree on.
Yeah, and the Falcons, who cares about the Falcons, to be honest?
Team. I forgot they were a team. Trash.
Facts.
Unbelievable. Screw the Falcons. Oh, well. Well, the Falcons are going to be watching the playoffs certainly this year as our two teams fight for playoff spots in both the AFC and the NFC. This week 3 matchups at 1 o'clock on Fox in Foxborough, Massachusetts, between the Saints and the Patriots. Guys, thank you very much for joining us here on Down the Block Sports, an exclusive show previewing the Saints and the Patriots.
Thanks for having us, man. I'm absolutely hungry. I gotta eat this W real quick. Hold on.
Oh, creative there, bud. Creative there, bud. It's gonna be a hell of a game. Hopefully Jameis isn't eating any W's for my sake here in Foxborough. But thank you guys again. Let's go Patriots, and we will see you guys very soon. That's be it for this episode of the Alec Walt Show and the Who Dat Chat here on Down the Block Sports. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside Conor Robinson and Michael Balko. Who do you think will win this matchup between the New England Patriots and the New Orleans Saints? Feel free to comment that below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Down the Block Sports for more of our exclusive content. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you very soon.
Who dat?